here is something obvious that maybe you've never stopped to think about. Things are made up of other things. This bouncy ball is made up of rubber. This brick building is made up of brick, glass, steel, and lots of other things. Now, it turns out that this plain everyday fact, that things are made up of other things, is actually quite mysterious. Think about the ball again. What is this thing? Is it a ball? Or is it really just a round hunk of rubber, and we call it a ball? Or consider this thing again. Is it a building? Or really just a bunch of brick, glass, and steel? Now you might get impatient with this kind of thing and say, look, this isn't hard, it's a building, and the building just is a collection of brick, glass, and steel. In other words, the building and the materials it's made of are the same thing. But philosophers have known for over 2,000 years that the answer is not so simple. For instance, what if the building falls down? We still have the brick, glass, and steel. So if the building just is the materials it's made of, then this pile of rubble is the building. But that doesn't seem right. It's not a building anymore. Is it? Same goes for the bouncy ball. You might want to say, oh, come on, the ball just is the hunk of rubber. But if we shredded the ball into a little pile of rubber shavings, it wouldn't be a ball anymore, would it? But it would still be the same bit of rubber. What in Sam Hill is going on here? Welcome to what philosophers call the puzzles of material constitution. Material, because these are puzzles about physical objects. And the word constitution is just a fancy way of saying being made up of. As in, the hunk of rubber constitutes the ball, and the brick, glass, and steel constitute the building. Philosophers who study material constitution are interested in how it is that physical things make up other physical things. As we've seen, it's not so straightforward. Let's look at 3 famous puzzles that illustrate the problems of material constitution. This is Tibbles. This is Tib. Tibbles, Tib. You see, Tibbles is just a regular old cat. But Tib is the name that we've given to this large part of Tibbles. In other words, Tib is a cat part, the part of Tibbles that includes everything except the tail. So we have 2 different physical things here. Tibbles, the regular old cat, and Tib, a large, tailless part of Tibbles. But now imagine that Tibbles loses her tail in a terrible accident. Obviously, Tib is just fine. In fact, nothing happened to Tib at all, because Tib never had a tail in the first place. But what about Tibbles? Did Tibbles survive the loss of her tail? Well, if we say she did, then Tibbles and Tib are both right here. In other words, 2 different physical things, Tibbles and Tib, are occupying the exact same physical space. But that can't be, can it? So maybe it's best to conclude that Tibbles passed away with the loss of her tail, and only Tib remains. But if we apply this same reasoning to human beings, well, then we must conclude that nobody survives the loss of a body part. When Bob loses a body part, he doesn't survive. Here is the ship of Theseus, sailing the ancient Mediterranean. Every once in a while, repairs must be made at sea. Perhaps one day an old wooden plank is tossed overboard and replaced. Maybe another day, a frayed length of rope is discarded, or a bit of sail, and replacements are brought out from the supplies. This goes on over several years until every single piece of the ship has been replaced. Question: is this still the same ship of Theseus that left port several years ago? Or is it a different ship? If it's a different ship, at what point did it stop being the old ship? And what if I told you that a crew of sailors has been following along behind, collecting all the discarded items, and they have now rebuilt an entire ship from the parts that were thrown overboard? Is this the ship of Theseus? It's 9 a.m., and this is a lump of Play-Doh. Now it's 9:07, and I have sculpted the lump of Play-Doh into a sculpture. Let's call the sculpture Frosty. Now as you look at Frosty on my desk, we can ask, where did the lump of Play-Doh go? And you might answer, in sort of an exasperated tone, "It didn't go anywhere. It's right here. Frosty just is the lump of Play-Doh, and the lump of Play-Doh is just Frosty." But there's something very fishy about this answer. For one thing, the lump of Play-Doh existed at 9 a.m., but Frosty didn't. How can you say Frosty just is the Play-Doh if they came into the world at different times? Or what about this? The lump of Play-Doh can survive my squashing it. See? It's still a lump of Play-Doh. But poor old Frosty has gone away. How can one survive and not the other if they're just the same thing? We might have to go back and say they're not the same thing. This is a lump of Play-Doh, and it's Frosty. But that means we've arrived at the conclusion that two different physical objects can overlap each other in the exact same physical space. Are we really ready to say that there are two cats here? Tibbles and Tib? Now you might feel like you've been tricked, or we're just playing word games here. But if you think about it hard enough, and maybe rewatch the video, I think you'll see that there are real questions here, and we're trying to get at the truth about the nature of physical objects. It's a classic example of metaphysics. Of course, I haven't offered any solutions here. You'll have to stay tuned for that. But at least now you know that the boring old world of tables and chairs, bouncy balls and buildings is more mysterious than you thought.